Croeso, and welcome to Leeway Productions podcast 10-Minute Musicals.
Your friendly neighbourhood podcast that explores how we collaborate as artists and how we can start to make a new landscape for Welsh musical theatre. My name is Luke Hereford and I am an associate artist for Leeway Productions and your host.
And I am Angharad Lee and I'm artistic director for Leeway Productions and your other host.
You say other host and it makes it sound like you're less important, but you're certainly not.
Oh, thank you, Luke.
You're very welcome. Today we will be interviewing 2/3 of the writing team behind You and You and You and Me. You and You and You and Me is a 10-minute musical which premiered at the Other Room Theatre in Cardiff in January 2017. It's written by Dafydd Evans, Melanie Stevens and Tobias Wedderburn. You and You and You and Me has since been performed at the Queen's Theatre in Hornchurch, Pontio'r in Bangor, the Wales Theatre Awards in Taliesin Arts Centre, and at the Arts Council of Wales's annual conference in Cardiff. I think this is quite an exciting one to start with as well, because this was made through a very, very collaborative process between the three artists who were involved. And I think the piece and the story behind its conception really captures the spirit of what 10-minute musicals is all about, don't you, Angharad?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this one. And yeah, we're really lucky that here to talk about their experiences of 10-minute musicals. We have Melanie Stevens and Tobias Wedderburn. Welcome both.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Hello.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, how are you doing? Haven't seen you or heard from you in a while.
No, well, doing really well. I mean, we're right in the middle of lockdown at the moment, so doing as well as we can do, as is the whole nation, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Where are you guys joining us from today?
I'm joining from London, North London.
And I'm in the bedroom in Cardiff because the living room is currently out of bounds, which is fun.
Oh, that's lovely.
Do we want to know why it's out of bounds?
I'll leave the illusion up.
It's good to have an illusion. So I'm just going to dive in with our very first question for Melanie and Tobias to give our listeners a bit of context about what happens during a 10-minute musical project. Just tell us what happened on your very first day of your 10-minute musicals experience.
Should I take this, Toby?
Yep.
Cool. Well, when we first started, we actually didn't have a writer. We were the only group without a writer, so we had no script. So we decided to do a complete collaboration between the three of us, between the composer, Tobias, and myself as the actors. And we brainstormed, and we really wanted to create a full concept in 10 minutes, and we really enjoyed the fact that it would be a comedy, so we really concentrated on the fact that we wanted it to be funny.
That's great. So just to be clear, you say you didn't have a writer, so most teams on the 10-minute musicals project are assigned a writer who is often from a playwriting background. Is that right, Angharad? Would you say that's correct?
Yes, and this is coming back to the lab idea. You know, there was a writer and Dav was involved, so I knew he played guitar and, you know, he composed a little. So there was the marriage, you know.
So they were a writer-composer, which is normally what you have. You normally have a writer and a composer team and then
but
actors.
The writer fell ill.
So Tobias and Melanie, both of you were brought into the project as actors and then it ended up flexing your writing muscles. How was that, flexing your writing muscles with sort of no notice?
It was quite exciting, actually, because I mean, speaking for myself and Toby, we've both done writing individually as well. So being able to dive into a writing collab was really exciting.
I think we were quite lucky as well because we'd obviously worked together as performers before as well. So there was a bit more of a comfortable relationship there to sort of bounce off of and start working on something rather than sort of going in day one and go, oh, hello, you know, getting all of the, you know, meetings out of the way. It's just quite a comfortable beginning to just go, we can just go straight in and try and do this as a group.
Definitely.
Neither of you had met Dafydd before though, is that right?
No.
So how did you did you find yourself negotiating that sort of three-way working partnership?
Sorry.
No,
I guess I guess we it was actually a really amazing match up with Dav, because he's super laid back, and he was really easygoing, so he was really open to any ideas. So we started the first, I'd say, half an hour of the day just sort of putting out ideas. We came up with quite a few, like I think one of them was maybe a musical based around a talking dog, and I can't remember the other ones. There was loads, wasn't there?
There was a grave robbery thing.
Yeah.
It was a really, I think it was that thing of sort of, again, day one, not having a right, everyone going, okay, let's just try and throw a load of ideas into a pot and see what we can do. But I think that was great as well, because having Dav, who, like Mel said, he's really laid back, he was more than comfortable to throw his own ideas in as well in terms of the writing. So
Definitely.
it just became a really big collaboration between the three of us together, rather than it being sort of us writing and Dav composing. It was such a working together as the three of us to come up with this idea of story, narrative, and then, you know, meshing it all together.
It was having that beautiful, like, equality between the three of us, which really worked.
So yeah, that sort of equal marriage between the three of you is really, really interesting, and I think is exactly what 10-minute musicals is about. It's really interesting that you don't have that kind of hierarchy, or it seems like you didn't have when you were building the piece, that you don't have that hierarchical, I guess, breakdown within your group, which could be difficult for some collaborations.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think we were all very respectful of each other's ideas, and we're all very careful not to, like, bat down the ones that maybe we were thinking, oh, actually, I don't think that's going to work. We just went with everything, and then we all came to the conclusion when things didn't work and when things did work. So it really did feel like a three-way deal.
And I think because we were all not panicked at the beginning, but we were all on that sort of same level of, oh, okay, we don't have a writer. Oh, okay, we need to, you know, just go straight into it. It sort of went in then, the three of us all on the same page, all on the same level, sort of that understanding of going, we have to work together. That sort of made it that thing of going, okay, we can just be comfortable from day one and just, yeah, work together. I feel like I'm repeating myself with what I just said, but...
No, 100%, I completely agree with you.
It's great. You just all had to roll your sleeves up and crack on with it in a way.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm just interested then, you've been involved in this though, kind of, have you written much since this, or, you know, how do you came into this as performers, as actors, but obviously everything's transferable, all these skills are transferable, so kind of how would you classify yourself coming out of this kind of experience, you know, and has it changed the course of how you see yourself as an artist, I guess?
It actually has really boosted my my composing, because when I was younger, I'm a pianist as well as a singer, and when I was younger I always used to write songs, but I sort of just went out of that fit. When I went to drama school, I just sort of left it behind and never really thought in my mind that I would ever do it again. But since then I've written 7 songs on my own, and it's really inspired me to go down that corridor as well as just the acting side of things as well, which has been really nice.
Yeah, I just want to jump in there, because what's lovely about this is, because I was introduced to Melanie through this project, and I think through you, Luke. I think you kind of what's anog in English? I can't remember. None of you speak Welsh too.
Tobias speaks Welsh.
Encouraged, that's the word.
Championed, Mel. Championed her. Put her out to you.
I've been doing this all day. And, you know, then Mel, I think you were part of the Sirens project at Leeway, you know, so it's been kind of there's a knock-on effect here, which is really
100%. And the Sirens project has created this amazing collaboration which I have with another man called Adam Print, who's a composer, and we are constantly making music together, and we've done 2. Well, we've actually performed in my 2 seconds, I'm gonna have to find out what it's called. It's a songwriting competition in Camden, which we entered, and then we got through to the semis. I'll have to look what it's called. We did that, and then we also did a full concert in a cappella studios together, which was amazing, with some covers and also his own original music. And then we've started doing some collabs together, and during lockdown we did loads of online duets, and it's just been a relationship that I didn't think I'd have with anyone, and it was made possible by working with Leeway, which I just think is
and that's great. And that's what the lab experience is about. You know, it's that brokering of relationships. It's giving you space, and what you do with that, I think, and the energy you take from that is great, and you do with it what you will. You know, so that's great to hear. Wow.
Bringing this right back to the 10-minute musicals project, you both mentioned something quite early on when you were talking about your piece, about how inspired by the idea of making a comedic piece you were. So were there any kind of specific references that led you to that, or any other sort of specific inspirations that you brought into your process?
I think when we began the idea process of the 10-minute musical, we all agreed that we wanted to make a 10-minute musical that was rooted directly in Wales. And from the three of us growing up and coming from Wales, it became quite important to us.
Yeah, I think it was, as Mel said, like the three of us having our background and where we grew up, I think we were the right people to tell that sort of story, I suppose, because we all had those similar roots, obviously coming from different parts of Wales and everything, but it's that sort of similar story that I think we've spoken about more recently, sort of like it is so rooted in Wales, but it's also something that you can pick up and sort of put anywhere at the same time. And I think, yeah, adding to that as well, that sort of idea of wanting to root it in Wales, and also we really wanted to find a way to sort of fit this narrative arc of the piece into 10 minutes, sort of having a beginning and an end.
Well, that's so interesting, because there's a lot to be said, I think, about like specificity being universal. You look at something like Derry Girls, which is so specific to the place it's set and the way that those characters speak, but we all watch it and we're like, oh god, I remember being a teenager and getting wasted and like doing stupid things in school.
I think having those sort of characters where it's not sort of, not stereotyping, but sort of those sort of snippets of personality and those ideas of a person that you go, I recognize that for where it is and who they are. But yeah, like you said, you can see it in anyone and everyone you know, in a village or in a town, in a city. Yeah, recognizable characters.
And I think it's really important, like what you said about it, kind of, you can lift it up and put it anywhere else, but you wouldn't necessarily have to change those characters being Welsh, because it, you know, that's important to the seed of the idea, I think. And with the idea of comedy, obviously that's something that you have quite a big background in, Tobes. So do you want to talk about kind of where the idea of writing a comedic musical came from and why that was at the forefront of your collaboration?
I mean, it's hard to say. I think it's because we also sort of had a laugh together, which sounds like a really silly thing to say, but I think it's that sort of thing when you're comfortable working with a group of people and you can just sort of almost verbal diarrhea to each other, where you just have the ideas just spilling out and you can just chat. You end up having all these different ideas that can bounce off of each other. And I think when it came to looking at the humor of it, as I know other writers will say, sometimes comedy is the hardest thing to write, or comedy is the hardest thing to perform, because it's finding humor in some of the worst situations and things like that. And I think it sort of came down to it, I don't know, Mel, if you feel the same, a lot of it was just that we sort of made each other laugh with these characters we were doing.
100%. And there was no judgment between it, the three of us as well, which I think is also really important, because you didn't think, oh, if I say this is a stupid idea, or maybe this isn't very funny, but I'm going to say it anyway. There was no, I didn't feel unsafe at any time, which was great.
Yeah, I love what you're saying here, because I'm obsessed when I work with my actors about tempo rhythms, that we've all got this rhythm, this tempo rhythm about us, you know, and it just felt like your tempo rhythms just matched, and when all three tempo rhythms just matched, the energy behind that really propelled you forward. So yeah, that's how I like to sum it up, I think.
100%.
So we've got a video to show you.
Ooh, I'm so excited.
Which you haven't seen before.
No.
Angharad, do you want to tell us a little bit more about what the video is, where it's come from, and kind of why it exists?
Yeah, to give the listeners a context, or viewers if you're on YouTube, we worked with the MA Musical Theatre students at Welsh College of Music and Drama, because we were really interested in their responses to this, and if there was further development to these pieces. So what we've got here is a 3-minute snippet, kind of a condensed version is what you decided to do, I think, to showcase this 10-minute musical. So so it's given it a brand new context that I don't think Mel and Toby have seen before. So I'd be interested to see. And it was self-shot as well. It was during lockdown. So I think what they've done with it is fantastic.
I lie awake at night, I can't sleep. You go round in my mind on repeat. I think about you every day. Hopefully you will be mine some way. Seeing you with her broke my heart in two. And then I realized I had to fight for you. So I fought for you and made you mine. Then you walked me home and took me from behind and came inside me. Hopefully you felt me and gave me a baby. Then my life will be tidy. God, I wonder whose it is. Could be Julio. That's a thought.
I'll give you a little Spanish baby. Shake my maracas, I'll make you go crazy. Girl, there's no time for a fiesta. I'll take you on a spin on my Ford Fiesta.
No way. Actually, it can't be him because he only ate my paella and we didn't have time to de-skin the treat, so could be Edward's mind. And that's a thought.
Now come with me back to my house in Birchgrove, where we can eat pheasant cooked on the stove. Now get on the bed and put on this vest. Lay me down slowly and shit on my chest. God,
I hope not. It took me a week to get that silver spoon out of my ass. Could be Dan's. And that's a thought.
The three of us, we could make the perfect team. When we're together, it would be like living the dream. I do my best to take care of both of you. Whatever you want, I'll do my best to give to you. 'Cause you and me, we're meant to be together.
You and me, we're meant to last forever.
'Cause I know that you're the only one for me. You and me, we're meant to be together. We're meant to last forever. We're meant to be together. We're meant to last forever. Oh, can you imagine? God, I hope so.
Dan, me and our baby, our heart lives will be tidy. Our little family, Dan, me and our baby. Negative. Oh well.
Oh my god, I love it. So good.
So funny.
So funny.
What's it like listening and watching it back?
It's so weird seeing other people do it, but it's so amazing because it just brings all of the characters just a new injection of life. Brilliant.
Quite weird seeing several different people do the characters as well, because obviously it works with anyone doing any of the characters, but the idea of having go from one person performing three to each of these individual fully fleshed out characters is just brilliant.
100%.
Do you like it? That's a simple question. You watch it, you kind of go, oh yeah, I like that.
Yeah, no, I
do. I want to see more. I want to see the whole 10 minutes.
Great.
That's a really great response. So you want to see the whole 10 minutes with this cast. It's like a trailer.
I think my favourite bit of it was the zoom in on Edward at the end.
It's interesting as well as characters you've written and performed by somebody completely different puts them in a completely different light as well. Because Edward, I loved the way he performed it, and it almost felt a lot more threatening than I'd ever pictured it towards the end.
100%.
It really worked.
Yeah, you know what was lovely about this is Corey Shipp, designer. She did a lovely session with them where they had to decide on their own palettes of color, their own design. So they worked a lot with Corey to design that themselves. So it was their response to the call. So that was lovely to see how they got to grips with that.
Nice. Yeah, no, it was really good. I liked the disco for Julio.
Absolutely.
So much sleaze, I love it.
So with 10-minute musicals, one of the things that we encourage any of the artists who are involved is to continue writing, continue building their craft and developing their toolkit as artists. On the call, we currently have theatre designer Tobias Shipp, who has worked with Leeway previously. And for this podcast and for the project with Welsh College, Corey created some design responses to each of the 10-minute musicals that were being covered.
So these responses are designed to give the writers of these 10-minute musicals a new medium of thinking about how they may develop this work or any other work in the future. With the idea that 10-minute musicals is all about the collaboration of different types of artist-led practices, hopefully an insight into these musicals from a more design perspective will give new ideas to our artists that they can use as a kind of jumping off point, as well as an opportunity to have an idea of what it's like to discuss design ideas in more of a collaborative way. Which
is a really useful thing, I think, for anyone to have an opportunity to speak to a designer. It's always good. With that in mind, theatre designer Tobias Shipp, how are you today?
Hello. Yeah, good. In lockdown, like everybody else, getting through.
Where are you calling us from?
I'm in Wales, back down towards the valleys in Blackwood.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so nice to be back in Wales for the crisis.
all the best people live in the valleys.
Obviously.
I'm very jealous of people who live in the valleys during this global pandemic because that's some good places to go walking.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've seen more of the valleys now that I've been home than I ever saw before.
Amazing stuff.
Okay.
Do you want to talk us through your design ideas then, Corey, for you and me?
Absolutely. Obviously, starting off in a place where you don't have an actual location to start off with as a designer is quite difficult. The first thing we end up looking at is the room or place it's going to be in. So it was a little bit like having a totally blank piece of paper, which was really good fun. What also you've got in this musical, which is lovely, is some very, very well-defined characters. You've got these real archetypes of people that I know we've touched on previously, of people that you recognise and sort of sentences that you're like, oh, so-and-so would come out with that, which was really helpful as a starting place. I got really fascinated with Blind Date. I think maybe that's because I was of the generation that grew up with it. But I know obviously there was a lot of discussion about her having this pregnancy test and it taking place in the toilet. And I just started getting really lost down this tunnel of what if we combined the Cilla Black blind date sort of doors with cubicles? And you've got this centre cubicle that's got her in it telling this story, and then every cubicle opens to reveal this really stereotypical character, and a new world is behind every door. I mean, I don't know how ultimately practical that is if you end up taking a show outside, but it was absolutely a starting point for me to think about. And certainly when I was working with the MT students at the Royal College, they were quite keen on this idea of being able to see the memories taking place around the central character. So it kind of became an easy way to shut off certain memories and then reopen them up when we were ready to tell that section of the story, which was really good fun. And what I also really wanted to look at to start off with a mood board is those archetypal characters, hence why you've got a picture of Nigel Farage in his tweed. This sort of real character that's, I mean, not lovable at all, but has these quirks that we recognise and that we think are funny, but also is this really character we find quite repulsive, and a little bit sort of why we end up falling, for these people and listening to them, as well as knowing that we don't really like them. So really pulling out those archetypes of people that we should hopefully recognise out of our everyday lives is quite fun.
I love it. This is the first time I've seen this, so it's just lovely.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. No, it's just lovely, as the director and me, you want to get involved. And Luke and I were discussing this. The whole lab feel is that, as a director, you step back as much as you possibly can, and you're led by the artist,
But give me a mood board and I can't resist.
Yeah. Everybody loves a good mood board. And this is like, for a designer, this is a really initial one. I mean, you build on this even more and more, and you end up with so many images that you wouldn't really know what to do with them all. So this is really like step one for a designer of how we'd start moving forward.
And that's really insightful. Sorry, Mel, you go.
No, I was just going to say it's a real nail on, like, looking at this mood board, it's like a real door to like the mind when we were actually building this piece, because we talked a lot about stereotypes when we were especially when we were creating the men. And I never really thought about Amy Schumer, but that's such an amazing mirror image of who the girl is. I never thought about it, but it's a nail on the head there.
It was one of those moments you end up sort of ending up down tunnels and being like, you find things you've never heard of. I had never seen this image before. I had no idea that she'd broadcast her pregnancy the entire. I had no clue. So for me, I was like, oh my god, there it is. There's like the kickstart, and that look of like shock and horror, but also excitement on her face is just perfect.
Also, like, I like the idea of like, if this musical was ever like, made into a 60-minute musical, I love that idea of it being blind date and going through those doors. I just think it's like that children's TV program. I think it's called, is it Playhouse? The one where you go through the different shaped windows. It's almost like that for
Funhouse.
Men. Is it Funhouse?
House of Fun, Prizes to be Won. Is it that one?
No, it's
no.
It's the play school. And have you seen during lockdown somebody on Facebook, because it goes, I don't know what the music is. And it goes, what day is it? And somebody's just put in, fuck no. Brilliant.
Amazing.
Blind date is such a nail on the head, because now I just have the image of Dav would in essence be Cilla Black.
Yeah.
He'd be wandering around with a guitar. So
the guitar, like.
I just think it would be so much fun to have something that looks like that initial image of grotty and like a toilet we're not particularly overly keen on. So you get this stamp immediately of like, oh god, what is she? Where is she? What mess has she got herself in? And then these doors open into like absolute different worlds. So you have this one door opens and you're in Copacabana, or you're in Italy, or there's something really exciting and fun about it, and then the next door opens into like this country manor with a massive painting of the guy who's singing at her on the walls, and so you really get this Throof's tale of like 3 different locations behind every door, which would be really good fun.
This is brilliant. And just to let everybody know, we're in discussion at the moment with regards to, because we've got loads of 10-minute musicals, about how we could create a promenade performance of them at the moment. Me and Corey have been speaking a little bit about this, and looking at this now, you could even imagine Cilla being the one on the guitar, taking us through it's like a peephole into everybody's life, so there could be a nice marriage here from this character, actually.
I think everything needs a bit of Cilla.
Yes.
I would always encourage more Cilla Black.
I actually played Cilla Black in my primary nativity play when I was I must have been about 9 or 10 years old. and it was, well, I mean, it wasn't really nativity. It was more like Henry VIII finding his 7th wife. And they did like a blind date thing, and I played Scylla, and it was, yeah, funny. I wore a gold wig, as you do.
Fantastic.
I absolutely thought you were going to bring in.
Face.
This is brilliant. I thought you were going to bring in Scylla Black with a tea towel on her head playing a shepherd or something, and I got really confused.
Amazing as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Corey Shipp, theatre designer extraordinaire. For those listeners who are tuning in through a non-visual medium, if you want to see those design responses for yourself, you can tune into this episode on YouTube. I think that is all we have time for today. But before we bring this episode to a close, Tobias and Melanie, what is in store for you both next?
Currently, I've just been writing a few little bits for BBC Sesh. So carrying along on the writing strain. And I'm currently finishing off a second draft of a pilot to hopefully start doing when the world resumes normality at some point.
I realise this is quite a tricky question at the moment for a lot of us, but you know, just it's nice to ask. And those sound like very exciting projects. What about yourself, Mel?
I mean, initially, after this, I'm gonna go make myself a cup of tea, and then in October, I'm actually starting at Mount View Theatre School in an MA in musical theatre. So that's my next venture.
Oh my
That is a very exciting next venture. Congratulations, Mel.
That's
amazing. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, Melanie Stevens, Tobias Weatherburn. Thank you also to Lucy McIlwain, Joey Cornish, Caleb Lagayan, and Jessie Ashby, who performed You and You and You and Me. And of course, musical director extraordinaire, Joe Hood. And of course, designer Corey Shipp.
And thank you, last but not least, to our lovely listeners. If you enjoyed today's podcast, you can share the love on social media using the
hashtag Leeway10pod.
And by tagging us at Leeway Prods on Twitter, Instagram, and on Facebook. Tune in next week for more behind-the-scenes conversations with artists from Leeway's 10-Minute Musicals initiative. Until then, I've been Luke Hereford.
And I've been Angharad Lee. See you next week, Luke.
See you next week, Angharad.